Good evening, everyone. Am I working? Everybody hear me? We're going to try to stick to our timetable tonight, so it's 5:30. So I'm going to call our community meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight. It's wonderful to see such a large crowd, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us. For those who don't know me, I'm Lori Fox. I'm the president of the school board. I'm joined tonight by Treasurer Karen Brissett to my left. Next we have, Secretary Karen Brissett, Treasurer Chris Blake, Trustee Angie Brooks, and Trustee Jen Murray. Vice President Travis Altman was planning on attending tonight, but had an unavoidable work commitment and sends his apologies. Also, Trustee Kevin Bach had a commitment out of town this evening at the last minute. In the back of the room, back by Natalie, if you'll just wave. In the back of the room, there are some brochures and vote signs. Those are available to you, and we encourage you to take those and share those out with the community. You'll also notice around the room in the chairs and on the tables, there are index cards and ink pens. We ask that you please use these cards to write your questions on. Please limit your questions on a card to 1 or 2. Please write as legible as possible and include your name in case we have questions or need to reach you. If you prefer not to include your name, that's fine too. Once you have your cards completed, please hold them up. Jen Murray will be scanning the crowd, and she'll be around to collect those as she sees them. If you are live streaming in tonight, you can send questions to Jay McCormick at colemanschools.net. That's JMCCORMACK at colemanschools.net. Some bond-related questions will be answered after public comment, others during the tour, and others will be added to our FAQ document that can be found on the bond webpage on our school site, as some of them may require some research. And I apologize, but I think I left a page of my stuff sitting. Hang on. Printed on the back side. The website is www.colemanschools.net, or you can use the Coleman Comet app. There is lots of information on that webpage, so I encourage you to check it frequently as items are added, sometimes daily, and almost always weekly. There's something new. The flow of the meeting tonight will be about a presentation by Superintendent Jen McCormick, about a 25-minute, very information-packed presentation. It'll be followed by a variety of students, teachers, and facilities committees and community members that will speak briefly. All of this will take us about 45 to 60 minutes. We'll then have about 15 minutes of public comment, and then we'll adjourn our meeting and conclude with the tour. There is a passion and intensity regarding the bond. I ask everyone to please be respectful and not talk over others. There may be times when board members quietly clarify questions between each other as we speak as a board and not as individuals. This is why some of the questions will be answered after the meeting in the FAQ for accuracy. The goal is mutual respect as people are talking or speaking. It is now my pleasure to introduce Superintendent Jen McCormick for her informational presentation.
I'm going to check. Jim, am I loud enough this time? All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to stand up here just for the sake of everybody being in the back there to make sure everyone can hear me. Usually I like to kind of wander around, and so I'll be able to do that with you for the tour, and I encourage you to stay for that. I'd like to start tonight with having you start to picture this. Picture a school that offers elementary student food that stays heated for lunch and breakfast at the same level as it does for the junior, senior high students. and furniture in the library that's movable, creating a large maker space for use by multiple classes of students, facilities that are high quality, safe, efficient, and effective for every student, updated 21st century classrooms for students that can better support the current learning models of the group problem solving, discussion, literature circles, and the like. One that provides sufficient space for a greater variety of classes, supports, extracurriculars, offices, storage spaces. Some of these have been added over the past 5 to 8 years. Things such as financial literacy, intervention support for those struggling, additional social work services, drama, wrestling, tech challenge, robotics, zoology, 8th grade ag STEM, just to name a few, and we're hoping to build more. One that matches the updates in our elementary so that as those students progress to the junior senior high, they can take advantage of the resources instead of our current 46-year-old facility. A space where the basic classrooms of the school and the typical size lockers that are used by every junior senior high student are inviting to current and potential students with updated, adaptable, flexible furniture, space recaptured for our reconfigured and remodeled classrooms, univentilators in the classrooms that are quiet during instruction, and more efficiently heat the incoming air to save expense and support learning, or walls that are not hollow with little soundproofing between the classrooms that are triangular shaped or have 6 walls at this time. Imagine that those students then access, in addition to their basic classes, quiet space with less distractions for dual enrollment in early middle college, or other students for spaces with the arts, athletics, or one of several on-campus career technical education programs. These students in the community utilize a new 535-seat auditorium where all spectators can see and hear the event and can sit down. An auxiliary gym where games can be played or practices held in our own facilities in a more timely manner earlier in the evening, and allow the Family Center to have space to provide even more offerings to Coleman residents, and that reduce our rental fee. What if 2 more CTE programs such as cybersecurity, nursing, culinary, or hospitality business management were established for our students, and other county or area students could come in, bringing revenue to the district? What if those programs were eventually working in the evenings with companies in our area and adults to supply training programs and bring in additional revenue that way? And what if those same students and adults drove into Coleman, its stores, and businesses when they came for training? What impact would it have? These projected bond projects for the facilities will make those things possible. The school is a hub of many communities, and certainly here in Coleman. In January and February, a group of community members, parents, students, staff, both teachers and support, coaches and administration, some of which were also alumni and fit into multiple categories, came together to discuss those facilities. They reviewed the history of the district buildings, of which the junior senior high is 46 years old and has had remodeling to the office, to the roof, boilers. We've added carpeting, they've painted and fixed things, but not much in the way of the actual classrooms. Desks have been fixed and fixed again. Maintenance is done in a timely manner, and the community has been great stewards of the space. The committee discussed grants that have been sought over the past 6 years or so, and they were surveyed as to whether they were interested in maintaining status quo, applying for grants, or seeking another option. While the Facilities Committee and the district continue to be committed to seeking grants whenever and wherever we can, and somewhat because I find it fun, the overwhelming response was to seek a bond. Grants do not generally pay for buildings of this size and scope. Discussion was held about seeking smaller bonds, but the highest priority was renovating the classrooms and furniture at the junior senior high, providing for recaptured and additional space for classroom configurations, offices, storage, conference areas, and you'll see in the tour why this is important. These projects alone would be approximately 2 mills without any other projects being completed, about $10 million. The committee determined to move forward with the full bond to accomplish all projects listed to set the path for all areas of learning in the district, because it did not believe it should go back to the community later for those things that it could not get done with a bond this time around. Because of the 0.35 mills debt falling off of the current levy, the ability to join the school bond loan fund program, and our millage would have been substantially higher without the school bond loan fund participation, and our ability to access revenue from the current wind turbines and substation. The Facilities Committee recommended the 3.85 mil increase over the 2020 debt levy to the Board of Education, who then voted in a 7-0 vote to move forward with ballot language. I'm going to share with you some information from the FAQ. I would encourage you all to just become educated. It is important to us that the community speaks, in whatever way that is. We just want to make sure that you have the right information. This is your community. I feel by being here, this is my community. And so we just want to make sure we get that out to you. So I'm going to share a few things with you here now. If you take the opportunity to go to our district website, colemanschools.net, you'll see that you can click at the top of the page to take you directly to anything bond related. And there's constantly, or pretty consistently, been information updated. So if you looked at it 2 weeks ago, there's more information there today. If you click on that space, you're going to see all of the bond information. So when we talk too fast tonight or something doesn't make sense, please go there and take a look. There are a few different things I want to mention, but there are a lot of other pieces in here that I'd like you to take a look at. Obviously, the live streams are up here. We are recording tonight's live stream so that we will be able to post that. You can look into the bond details, and you can see information such as the bond brochure that's in the back of the room. You can see information that was in the Midland Daily News. You can take a look at video tours. So if you or someone you know does not take the tour or hasn't had an opportunity, there are about 16 snippets of different areas of the buildings to let you know what the projects are, and so that you can see the current state of those buildings as well. So please take an opportunity to do that. And so there's information there. And then what I'll go over is the FAQ here, and I'm not going to go through all 17 pages. I'm going to highlight some key pieces that people have asked about more frequently. It's also important that you know how this is going to impact you personally and how it's going to impact your family. Lori's going to speak a little bit later about some information that we've shared, but I encourage you to use the tax calculator that is listed on this bond site. You can click right here where we're at, and you can go in with minimal information and figure out exactly what the cost would be to you. It'll break it down by annually, and it'll also break it down by month for you. Some of my favorite things are the conceptual scope. You can see the pictures that are up here behind me to show you our conceptual designs. But also you can go into the website and see those for yourself at a later date if you would like. When you are routed to the tax calculator, it'll give you some additional detail. Please take a few minutes to read through that, because not only does do your taxable values matter, but also your income matters. So the information in that tax calculator does not come to me. It doesn't come to anyone here. We do not see that. It is for you and for you alone to take a look at. So I think that's important to know. Ballot language is at the very bottom here. You can take a look through that. And there are also some other short videos in here and on our website. My eyes are bad, but not quite that bad, so we'll try it again. So this bond is a $21,505,000 bond. The term of the bond will be over 28 years. There's information in here, again, if you've looked at the FAQ when it was first put out, anything that's been added was, I put that in gray so that you wouldn't have to reread everything to find the new information. There's information in here talking about how this will affect your taxes. I've shared a little bit of that. And there's information about how this compares to other debts around us for schools around us. So you'll see there's a comparison to Midland County schools, but there's also a comparison to quite a few different schools that are more our size. So we wanted you to see both Some of our competition is Midland, some of our competition are some of those MSAC schools. So you can see that pretty clearly. But when you take a look at it, even at the 7.55 mils, if the bond were to be approved, we would still be under or even with approximately 6 different schools around us. There's a listing both in the brochure and in this FAQ that tells you what the projects are that we're working toward and that we're trying to make sure are done. There's been some questions regarding the wind turbines. So some of the questions are why now? And in the brochure it explains 3 bullet points about why we decided to propose this at this time and why the Facilities Committee wanted to move forward with a recommendation. Additional information that was requested at our last community meeting was exactly what was the taxable value associated with the wind turbines. So currently there are 4 wind turbines within the Coleman Community Schools District. There's also a substation, which brings that to that $4.4 million. The estimated debt levy tax receipts would be $33,309 for those. Bond proceeds cannot be used to pay for salaries, administration, or staff, any general operating expenses, repair, maintenance, classroom textbooks, educational materials, any of those types of things. So when you take a look at that, you'll see in the bond language, and you can click on the link there to go right to the bond language, those are the only things that the bond can be spent on. Actually go back to this. I've talked about quite a few of these just in my original speech, so anything that's not covered, I'm going to try to see if there's anything here. But part of what I think I didn't discuss, I shared about making sure that we could use our own facilities for things, but currently our 6th grade band is housed over in the Family Center at the present time. We also have first dibs on all of the, on the gym in that, in the old middle school. And so we use that quite frequently. In a little bit, we're going to have just a short video with Andrea Secrease, who is the executive director there. He'll share some information. We would be looking at purchasing furniture for the entire building here at the junior senior high and for the cafeteria and media center at the elementary. Currently, we have kindergartners sitting in the same size seats as the 6th graders. So trying to work on that. Those were things that were not replaced with the 2015 bond when that building was updated. We also would be looking at replacing the gym floor at the elementary. Again, these are just a few projects that weren't able to be finished with that bond. I've spoken pretty extensively, and again in the tour you'll see more with the classrooms, and some people here will allude to those. So those are big pieces of this. With the cafeteria, typically prior to COVID, I started counting how many people do we have standing when we hold events. We're really fortunate tonight that all of you are here, and really fortunate that we have so many community members that attend. So people don't just bring mom and dad, they bring mom, dad, sister, brother, aunt, uncle, the neighbor down the street. And so what I was seeing is that we have about 80 to 90 people when all of this is filled with chairs, when we pack that back space with chairs to the point we can't get any more chairs in, we have about 80 to 90 people standing in those events at the present time. We are not looking to not use our space. We have a nice building that we can recapture a lot of space, and so some of what you'll see in those renderings that you look in with the bond is you'll see the current map, and you'll see that there are a lot of triangle-shaped rooms, that things were just kind of reconfigured to bring in the middle school students, and then you'll see what the new concept is, and you'll be able to see the difference in how much space we're actually able to recapture and hopefully better support our students and give more space for continuing to increase the amount of courses we provide to our students, because that's something that I've heard in the 5 years that I've been here, that is what people wanted. They wanted to make sure that there are opportunities for our students. So that would allow us to do those types of things. A pretty hot topic that there's quite a bit of information in here on is regarding the Family Center. So I tried to include any questions that I've heard over the past few months regarding the Family Center. I do want to share a little bit with you, and then again that video will come up. But when I think 2007, 2008, when the middle school was closed, There was a contract that was written with the Greater Midland Coleman Family Center. We just renewed that contract. It's another 5-year contract. It looks a little bit different this time around. Nothing has changed with the fact that we still get first dibs on those spaces. Again, the gym, the 6th grade band room, we have 1 storage room there. Up through this year, we had 2 storage rooms, but we were able to give one of those back because they wanted to move the clothing center over, and that way it allowed them to bring the community market in. So without that space, they wouldn't have been able to do that. When that happened, they reduced the amount of our rent for that, and I'm going to explain that as well. For that first priority, we currently are paying $8,000 for heat and electricity for those spaces. We still own the building and we lease that out for $1. That was the original plan with that. Some people have asked questions about what would that look like if the bond were to pass and we weren't using the space. It's already written in the contract that if we decrease our space there, they are going to decrease, as we lessen our space, we will decrease what the rent is for those places. But essentially, we're renting a room that they could be using for something else, and so that's why that was in there. There's information in here about who's responsible for what. So within our contract, Coleman Community Schools is still responsible, as you would if you were a landlord, for environmental inspections and reporting, for the roof, parking lot, heating systems, including the boilers, to be in good order and repair. We maintain a public liability insurance. We are looking to see if we can figure out exactly how much the insurance just for that building would be, but it's under umbrella coverage with the district, so it's all kind of lumped together at this point. When we find that, we will add that in here as well, because that was a recent question. All other costs, including if there were real estate tax or special assessments that aren't covered by being an exempt entity, would be covered by the Greater Midland Coleman Family Center. The daily and weekly custodial costs, maintenance, updates to the building are all covered by them. Any improvements that they make in the building, so they have gone in and put in new flooring in different places and they've updated the classrooms for preschool and those types of things. Any of those improvements that are permanently affixed, they come to us ahead of time, they ask for permission, and then those have to be approved, and those become the property of Coleman Community Schools at this point. A question arose as to whether the middle school could be sold so that it is no longer owned by Coleman Community Schools. This information is currently being researched, so as we have more information on that, we will share that out with you. I wasn't here when that came in originally, so we want to make sure that we know, because in some districts, I think Harrison is one, and there's others that, depending on how the buildings were either gifted or were purchased by those districts, sometimes you can sell them to other businesses or entities, and sometimes you cannot. An example is our North Bradley property. If we were to sell that forest property, that would have to go back to the DNR. So those are, any profits would go there. So trying to make good use of those things. If the band were to pass, we would begin work. We may have some small projects that could begin in fall or winter of 2022. The bulk of the work for the classrooms here and everything here at the junior senior high would start in summer of 2023. The impact on the learning environments for our students is a key point here. We're looking to upgrade, to reconfigure, and to recapture space for our students so that we can make sure we have that positive momentum to make us the preferred district. And that is the goal, that is part of our motto, that is part of our beliefs here in Coleman. We want to make sure that everything is organized, it's ready to go, it's conducive to 21st century learning. And so that's what we're working toward, and that's what we're emphasizing. That learning means that we want students working collaboratively. And so when you walk into the classrooms this evening, I want you to notice that the desks are still the same as when a lot of us were in school. So desk is attached to the chair. There aren't tables in the room. So when you talk about collaboratively, you take a triangle room and you take desks and chairs that are connected, and then you try to put those in collaborative groups, and it gets pretty difficult. So we're working on those types of things, as well as to make this the absolute best facilities for instruction for our students. Our expectation is that we are student-centered. That is the expectation of our staff, our administration, our board. We want to be held accountable to the success of every one of our students. That is key. We want these to be inviting spaces where the best work can be done that allows for the intended needs of those spaces. We want to bring people in, we want to keep those who are here, and we want to keep bringing people back, which a lot of times happens. Many of you that are sitting around here have had multiple generations who've come through these buildings. With the remodeling of the classrooms, we've talked a little bit about reduced noise level. This allows for not only all of the teachers and students, but this also supports students who are students with attention deficit disorders, speech, hearing impairments, all of those types of things to make it more conducive for them. We're looking to recapture space for the media center. We've actually, our dual enrollment has grown significantly over the last few years. Our early middle college is doubling this year. Those students come back, and currently we use a full classroom, but sometimes maybe there's only 4 or 5 students in there. We want to give them some conference room space within an enclosed media center so that they can actually go in there and do some of their work. But this would also allow for our paraprofessionals or our teachers or our staff to work with students in a quiet space. If I'm a student who's struggling and I'm out in the middle of the media center with everyone walking by, I may not be as willing to start sharing what my answers are, especially if I'm struggling originally. So this would provide them with some spaces that they could go and use in order to make it a better learning environment for them. I've talked a little bit about the auditorium. The ancillary gym that we're looking at can be used for every student and really the community at large. But this would allow us to move our weight room down to leave more space upstairs for batting cages, to give us a spot for our wrestling team who currently practices over in the family center. They originally were in the space up there and they were wrestling next to our trophy cases, so I kept thinking, oh my gosh, what happens when one of them kicks through that? So they were moved over to the family center, but the family center also has activities going. So every single night they're rolling every mat up, and those are not tiny mats, that's not a small job. So they're rolling those up and then putting them back down each time. We'd like to give them a space. So this would allow us to hold practices in both of our spaces here. There would be about 150 seats for bleachers in that auxiliary gym, so we could hold athletic events there too. I'm really pleased to say that over the course of the last year, and Mr. Burkhart deserves a ton of kudos for this, as well as our staff who has met and had conversations about technology. We actually got our last 300 Chromebooks in. We got them in the spring. We thought we'd get them in September, and they came in early. So we are 1-to-1 for devices starting for the fall. We've already met with our curriculum committee. They've gone back to other teachers to talk about what that will look like, because 1-to-1 for one person may look different than another. Might not look the same for a kindergartner as it does for a senior or junior. So we will have a plan set, kind of a 3-year plan on what that will look like and how we will help our students to become leaders and responsible for those things so that they are ready moving forward. We've added AV carts in every classroom. We'll actually have an AV cart that's movable by this fall. Quite a few already do. We were able to write grants to get wireless mics for each of those classrooms. I think we wrote 2 grants over the last couple of years. So we want to do things that we're able to, anything we can do to help support, we're trying to do that. The weight room that I mentioned, the equipment, I believe, Chad, was either donated or it was brought in by 2 different grants that were written by staff members over the past, I think, 6 years or so. So trying to do the things that we can with what we have. The last part of this I want to mention that I think is really important is the curriculum rotation. So originally there was not a curriculum rotation or a district curriculum committee. One of the things I heard over and over from both staff and families was we need new books. But I'm not the expert in every single subject area, so we brought a committee of administrators and teachers together. We have over the past 4 years sat down and talked about what does that look like, what are we going to do. We have a curriculum rotation, and in the past 3 years, the teachers that are in those content area committees are bringing proposals. They must be proposals that show best practice for students, that show data on which curriculum materials are going to get our kids to the highest level, and that will also support the instruction. We have been able to replace curriculum materials for math, for English language arts, so reading, writing at the elementary. We've done that also for art. We've done that for, blanking out right now, music, he's sitting right in front of me, music, choir. And then this summer, we're making the purchases from the proposal that just came in the spring. That'll be for science and also for physical education. Next year will be social studies, and then we'll start over. And there is a budget set for that, which we didn't have originally. Those are very important things because that is why we're here, is to educate students. So I want you to know that, because some of what people have asked is, so how do we make sure that our kids are getting the level of experience that they need? Why am I investing this money from the bond? So I'm going to kind of step away now. And again, there's more information in here should you have any questions. Thank you.
Jim, don't go too far.
Okay.
So you can pull up our next one.
I can do that.
Our next speaker is actually joining us tonight via Zoom recording, because we've had questions from the community, as Jen has shared out information about the Greater Midland Coleman Family Center and regarding its use in our space and theirs. Andrea Secrease is the Executive Director of the North and Coleman Family Center with Greater Midland. Andrea was unable to be here tonight due to a previous scheduled appointment, but joined in for a Zoom earlier that was recorded, and we're going to share that out.
So Andrea and I get to talking, and a lot of you know how much I like to talk. This is about a 15-minute video. I'm going to pick pieces of it that we wanted to share. I will post the whole video out. I don't want you to think that I'm leaving anything out on purpose, but just for the sake of time this evening, I want you to be able to hear a few of the things that she's sharing. Just ignore the very white, ghostly person on the right there. So.
Hi, Jen. I'm speaking with Andrea Secrease. She is the Executive Director for North and Coleman Family Centers through Greater Midland. And just wanted to give her a chance to answer a few questions as she's not available for our community meeting this evening, and just get things from her perspective. There have been a lot of questions, Andrea, around some of the things with the Family Center, and we've shared our information, but I think it's also helpful that they hear kind of where you guys are headed and what you've been doing. So the first question, that's come up from different people is, so what do we pay? And we've shared that out with everyone. And then what do we receive from that? So maybe you could share a little bit about the Family Center, what you guys provide to Coleman schools and to Coleman community.
Certainly, yeah. Well, we have a variety of different programs and services available within the building and within the community. So one of our larger programs is early care and education. So we are rated high quality. We're a 4-star rated program, which puts us in the top 10% of quality in across Midland County. So we provide care from birth to kindergarten readiness within our building. And in this last year, we've grown significantly. We're now serving more kids than we ever have since the inception of our center. So it's an exciting time for that program. Beyond that, we have a variety of recreation programs. Unfortunately, so many of those things were paused, just like other organizations last year. So we're looking forward to jumping back into those this year. But from flag football, tumbling, we have group fitness. We also have a wellness center. If you've been in our building, it's a pretty well-equipped wellness center and open to all age groups. We have several different membership options available, and there's some internal scholarship support available for those who are wanting to access wellness. We don't want any of our services, any of our programs to really be cost prohibitive in any way to anyone in the community. One exciting addition this year was Coleman Community Market, which is located here within the building. And that's available to all community members. We're open 3 days a week, and anyone can come in during that time and purchase household staples. We have meat, dairy, a ton of produce, some local produce, and all of those items are purchased from Michigan vendors, some from local vendors, and it's marked up a single dime and then sold to community members at a discounted rate. Hopefully it reduces any barriers to accessibility, affordability, availability here in the city of Coleman and our outlying regions, and makes it you don't have to drive to Clare or Sanford or into the city of Midland when you need a gallon of milk. Beyond that, we have partnered with Great Lakes Bay Health with the AIM program, which is Action in Motion. They have their mobiles here every other week. They are doing, they do everything from primary and preventative care, substance use prevention, substance use programs, dental and mental health services, which is a really great addition. Have been very well received and very well utilized as well. We have before and after school program, which we partner with the school to do. And we serve 20 to 25 kids daily. And then the summer, those kids then transition into our summer camp program. And we continue to serve those and a handful of others during the summer months to make sure that kids have a safe place to be. And they have adult role models and trusted folks around them in a great environment throughout the summer while parents continue to work.
But you can listen in on that. She has several more things that she shares out about what they do. Bear with me just a second.
To the elementary school and some of the ways that your staff helps to promote that and our staff helps to promote that.
Sure. I'll start with the early care and education piece because I think that that's a really important program and a really deep collaboration that is mutually beneficial both for families and for Coleman Community Schools. So our program, having high quality early care and education on the shared campus here, it almost guarantees that relationship with the school, starting with families when their children are, at 6 weeks old, all the way through kindergarten readiness. And because of that collaboration, there's a ton of kids who go to Coleman schools as a result when they have choices to go to Isabella County or Clare or to Meridian. So our program really does serve as a feeder program into Coleman Community Schools. And if it weren't for kind of our geographic location and really great collaboration with the school, that wouldn't necessarily be the case.
Well, I know that the teachers go back and forth too. Our teachers have come over to your classrooms. It makes it really easy. They can do that during a planning time or a lunch.
The transition is seamless, right? So our teachers have really great relationships with your teachers. And the transition for the kids ends up being so seamless because we start practicing some of those transitions both in the building and here to follow the same kind of routine that they're going to experience when they go off to kindergarten. And then for those before and after school kids, they get to walk right over here. They're in a safe environment. They can get help with their homework. They're doing organized activities. They have some free choice time. They get a healthy snack after school, and they can be with peers in a social setting that we know is safe. That again is one of those services that really fills a gap in the community. If it didn't exist, you would have elementary age kids who did not have care after school, and certainly not the length of time that we provided. And you have early release days on Wednesdays, and that would be, probably quite a time burden for working families to not have a place for kids to go on, particularly Wednesdays, but certainly every day of the week.
Final snippet here, real quick.
So what are your future plans in two different ways? You and I have talked about if the bond passes and we've set up a contract that if we need to use less space, our costs would decrease because of that. And that would allow you to be able to use the space in different ways. What happens if we are able to move some of our programming into our own buildings or into the junior senior high? And what happens if we're not for the family center? How does that work for you?
Sure. So if you are able to do this, which would be fantastic, and we have more access to other spaces within the building, we would expand some of our programming. That could include partnerships and other collaborations with entities across Midland County who we would hope to then house here within the city of Coleman to serve Coleman in our outlying areas. The other options would be more recreation and fitness opportunities for all ages. So right now, for instance, the school is the entity who predominantly uses our gymnasium space throughout the entire school year and then some days during the summer. There's such a demand for that space that we generally can't utilize it unless it's before 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon or on weekends. And even sometimes weekends are taken up with tournaments and practices, things like that. So there's been a little bit of a hindrance just because we haven't had access to that space to be able to run some of the programs, especially during winter months or in inclement weather days where you can't guarantee that you can be outside. So there's some sports and recreation things that we would love to do, but haven't been able to do because we don't have access to that space. And then if we don't have access to that space, if the unfortunate event were to happen and this didn't pass for the school, we would kind of stay with our current programming and we wouldn't be able to grow those opportunities. We've wanted to do it for quite some time, and the major barrier has been capacity from a space standpoint.
So you have capacity for staffing for those types of things and to make those happen, just not the place to put them.
Certainly, using internal resources across our network, we have a number of instructors and coaches who would certainly be willing to do those things, and we've not been able to do them.
And just one final thought, it's awful watching yourself and then realizing you're making the same exact motions as they're, like, while it's going on. It's really embarrassing, but thank you, Lori.
Next, we'll have our speakers. So as you come forward, if you'll introduce yourself and your role in the community. Mrs. Robb, as the kids call her.
So I am Nancy Robison. I have been a teacher here for starting 30 years this fall. And first of all, and I teach math, sometimes English, mostly math though in the high school. And first I wanted to put a little plug in for my National Honor Society. We have a blood drive coming up on August 12th, right here in the auditorium. It will be 9 to 1. Walk-ins are absolutely welcome, or you can go to their website and you can sign up for a time. But National Honor Society and myself, we would really appreciate all the help we can get with blood drives. And Versetti is constantly calling and saying, we need you to donate blood. Yeah, I'm saving myself. So they called me the other day. I'm like, okay, sign me up. So the classrooms in the high school, they're not equitable. They're all variety of different shapes. Mine is 6-sided. Some of the rooms are 4-sided, but they are not square or rectangular in any way, shape, or form. We may have 2 or 3 rooms that are rectangular, but some of them are really long and skinny, and they're not really conducive to the way the classroom needs to be set up. In my own classroom, I have about 6 or 7 rows of desks that face the classroom from the front of the classroom, and then I have 3 small rows that face the other one. So they run parallel to the front of the room, and it's the best setup that I have because I have to have an emergency exit path, and if I set them all up so they're all in straight rows, I wouldn't have that emergency exit, and we have to have that. I also worry about the number of desks. Last year, this kind of saved my classroom because of COVID, because we had several students that were online learning, and if all of those students had been in my classroom, I would have had close to 40, and I'm looking around my room going, there's no way I could put 40 desks in this room. It just won't happen. My room happens to be one of the larger ones, but it's still awkward, to say the least. Let's see. Some of the classrooms are not equitable because of the heating system. So our heating system is very antiquated, and in my room, it is freezing, in my opinion. It is freezing in the winter. Now, when I walk in at 7:30 in the morning, it is toasty warm, and I'm all excited. Yeah, it's warm in here. As soon as somebody else walks in the room, the temperature drops about 10 degrees, and then by the time the students come in, the temperature drops at least another 10 degrees. And I have put a thermometer in my room before, and the thermostat says it's set at 70. It is not 70 in there. It is 60 if I'm lucky. And I have to go home at night to warm up. I'm a teacher. I should not have to do that. I don't work outside. You know, my husband has to work outside. He comes home and has to get warmed up. I have to too, because the room is so cold. I'm touching stuff all day long. So I touch my desk, I'm touching the computer. All those things are cold. And I've often thought, if I just had some heated gloves or just a little fireplace right here, it would be great. So it brings the fresh air in. It does a great job bringing the fresh air in, but it does not heat it up to room temperature. And then we have the other extreme where one of the other teachers has a classroom where it is hot, even in the winter. She has a fan blowing on her all the time because her room is boiling. And it's like, this is not fair. This is not right at all. And it all has to do with that, the boiler system, and it's not as energy efficient as it could be. And I bet we could have a lot of savings just in energy costs if the boiler system were updated. And the classrooms would be more equitable in that way too. Also, sometimes when this room is closed off in the winter for blood drives, we do one in January, February, something like that. It's hot in here. It's really hot. Cafeteria can be hot. The media center's hot. That kind of a thing. Let's see. So the teachers in the high school were very good at making do with what we have, but I think it's time to stop doing that, and I think it's time to make some real changes, and our children deserve to attend a safe, warm environment that is conducive to learning. It is time to stop putting Band-Aids on things and make some construction changes that are going to impact this community for the next 50 years and beyond. I am in full support of this bond issue. I am a taxpayer in this community. I believe the students of Coleman are worth the extra money, and it is our duty as the adults in this community to help support the students in any way possible. Our students deserve the best that this community can offer, and now is the time to act.
Coach Clough?
Good evening. I'm Chad Clough. I am a teacher here at the high school. I teach physical education, 7 through 12, 9th grade health. I've been at the elementary for many years. This is my 12th, going on my 13th maybe? 12th to 13th year teaching here. I have 2 children in the district. We're Warren Township residents as well. My wife also teaches at the district as well. I was asked to speak on athletics today. I guess I do a little bit of that. I'm the varsity football coach, the varsity softball coach, assistant girls basketball coach. Of course, my classroom is the gymnasium, weight room, locker room space. Few things about athletics. Number one, we want to talk about being competitive. All right? And it's not just being competitive on the field. A lot of it is about being competitive with your facilities. If we want to be competitive, I see Dirk back there, and I know a lot of times Dirk's JV basketball team, they have to practice till maybe 9 o'clock at night, maybe even later by the time parents are able to come back and pick their kids up because his teams normally are not driving yet, and they're at the other facility. They're not at this facility, and it makes it tough when you're asking a kid to go to practice from 7 to 9, plus get dinner, plus get homework, plus get the sleep they need to come back and be competitive in the classroom, also be competitive in the gym around the field. So having those facilities all together and being able to space ourselves out a little bit more would help us in that respect. Good teams help build pride. So the more chances we have to practice with a full practice. I know us with the girls basketball program, we practice together with the JV in the same gym at the same time, usually only utilizing a half of a court. We do that sort of to help the other teams not have to spread their practices out. If everyone can get a full practice in, our teams are better, we have more pride in ourselves, we have more pride in our schools. We also can keep kids wanting to play those sports. So being competitive is a huge part of that. It's not everything. We always want to talk about winning is not everything, but as a coach, that is our ultimate goal, is to try to win games, but making things safe the way they should be for the kids and conducive for them to be able to also take care of their education, their other duties at home and things like that at a reasonable hour. Having these facilities would help with that. Talking about facilities a little bit more, holding kids or maybe even gaining kids, it's huge when you have nice facilities. If there's a family that moves into the area and they're looking at buildings or looking at schools, are you guys looking at the boys' locker room during your tour? If you look at the boys' locker room, you may not end up choosing Coleman. It's not anything to do with today. I mean, it's just been used over time, and it's old, and it's run down, and it's beat up, and it needs a facelift. If we have students that are starting to think maybe facilities are better somewhere else, and maybe they want to leave us, all right, we've had that happen in the past. It doesn't always happen. Most people have stayed local and stayed true, and we'd like that. But better the facilities, the better chance that we can hang on to those people. Some safety things. As a PE teacher, when I am in my locker room, I'm watching my kids, I can't see 2/3 of them. If I'm standing, I can see down this row, I can't see down the next 2 rows. If I move over to that row, I can't see down these 2 rows. If I go to the other end, of the same thing. There's always some line of sight issue just because it's been designed well in the past and it needs to be updated. Some other things that help with facility planning and safety is our weight room is at the top of the stairs above the high school gym. It is not enclosed, it is not locked. I know Mr. Mammal, some of our custodial staff during games, they tend to have to go up there, shoo some people out of there from other schools, sometimes small children that shouldn't be in there, because we can't keep them out of there. If we have a nice enclosed building, space in a different part of the building where that can be locked and those weights can be put away, they're not only going to be safer, they're going to last longer, they're going to be taken care of. And then also being able to multi-purpose that space back into the batting cages and wrestling room and maybe some other alternative sports that need that space and get them back in our building so they're not having to either get on a bus right after school, run down to the railway, or walk on the road where cars are driving every day to get to practice. Or a lot of people, they don't have the ability to pick their kids back up at the later hours, so those kids don't even participate. And we lose a lot of kids just because we don't have the ability for kids to practice right away after school. How am I doing? Close? All right, so she's creeping on me. So I'm going to finish up, talk a little bit about pride. We put our kids in uniforms. When we order uniforms, it is a large purchase to me, all right? It is not a large purchase in the grand scheme of things. Our sports boosters have been great for that. Dave Mammal, our athletic director, taking care of us on that. When we design a uniform, normally we design it with the kids' help, and it's a way to make them look good, feel good, make them more successful in their mind, so when they go out and play, they're more successful. We're not always nickel and diming, and those things will get a decent, nice-looking set to give them pride. All right, they look good, they feel good, they have pride. When we buy our equipment, when we buy football helmets, when we buy softball helmets, when we buy balls and things like that, we go with the best, safest, top dollar we can. What we can put our kids in to make them feel safe, make sure we feel they are safe, and to make the game safe. All right. When you come into the building today, you notice that we have a nice blue tint to our building now. When I first got here, it was a little brownish, tannish, brickish, and it wasn't a feeling of pride when you walked in. Now we have our entranceway, we have our colors, we have some signage in here, and that pride is starting to grow. We put these kids in uniforms, we put these kids in safe equipment. We need to put these kids in a nice, beautiful environment, safety, thinking safety first, just like we do when we put them in uniforms as equipment. Give them a sense of pride when they walk through this building so they have a sense of pride when they're in their classroom, when they're on the field, and when they're in the gym. So I will be outside. We're hosting a 7-on-7. If anybody has any questions for me, I won't be here during the walkthrough period. Come to the field, flag me down, catch me afterwards. I'm free to answer any question you need. All right? Thank you.
All right, Vance Isaac, and as Vance is coming up, I want to remind everyone, when you have questions on your card, please hold them up, and Jen Murray will come around and collect those. Vance?
Hello, my name is Vance Isaac. I'm 15 years old and going into my sophomore year at Coleman High School. Both my parents and grandparents are graduates of Coleman High School. With this bond, it would not only mean a lot to me, but to my peers and to my family and community. It would open up a whole lot of new possibilities and a new up-to-date learning environment. When you walk into the school, I don't think there's 2 classrooms that are the same shape. With having rooms different shapes, it makes it hard to teach and for teachers to present information to the kids. With the changes that would be made, it would make for a whole new learning experience. Are the lockers. Our lockers are old and hard to open, and most of the time there's bags and books sitting outside people's lockers because their stuff doesn't fit into it. Half the time kids are pounding on their locker to get it to open because they don't like to open, they're old. This bond will also put in a new gym and weightlifting room, which is very needed for our athletics. Having to play and practice in the railway gym isn't always the greatest and most convenient for kids. Having another gym can provide a better experience. Last year we had to have practices from 7 to 9 at the railway because we couldn't get into an open gym. It would also provide our new weightlifting room, which would be great. We could leave our weightlifting equipment in there and not have to transport it from the top of the gym and to the barn every year. Our new auditorium. Having a new auditorium would be awesome to not have to take down walls and place chairs, and we could all have it in one spot and not have to make more room. Yeah, so please get out and vote on August 3rd, and thank you.
Vance is one of 3 students that are speaking tonight, and kudos to them. It's difficult for adults to get up and speak, and these are our youth, and they're doing a fantastic job. So thanks, Vance. Matt Fox.
Hello, my name is Matthew Fox. Like you just heard, I graduated from Coleman in 2016 as a co-valedictorian. I recently graduated from CMU in 2020, and very recently in the spring, I was hired as a full-time junior high social studies teacher at Beaverton Schools. Not here, sorry. While I'm not currently teaching in the district, you might wonder why I'm taking the time to talk about this bond issue, to talk about a district that I'm not teaching in. And to put it simply, I am a Comet for life, and I will always be proud to have graduated from here, and I'll always care about the future of this community. With that being said, this past spring I had the pleasure of subbing in several surrounding districts in various counties, and which I will add to. I'll put a little plug for Jen here. If anyone wants a good part-time gig where you're working with kids in your communities, sign up to be a sub now. I'll put that right in there. But I was able to sub in many different districts and in many different buildings. And in each building, I often took time to walk around the building and talk to staff. After observing these districts, talking to staff, and looking at these buildings, I can confidently say that this building needs remodeled now. The classrooms do not effectively support a productive learning environment like we've been saying before. They're misshaped, they create a crowded and chaotic environment where teachers can't move around to facilitate learning at all, and students feel like they're on top of each other where they're sitting. The current layout of the rooms hinders ability to implement things such as learning circles, small group and fishbowl discussions. You can't have effective learning when you're on top of each other, when you can't move these desks around. So the rooms need to be squared off and have solid walls that reduce noise and updated furniture that is easily movable. And as a teacher, every relationship you start with a student begins with your classroom. And a lot of teachers take pride in how that classroom is set up. And so when you have a misshapen classroom, it does not create a welcoming environment for your students. But we are not giving the students the quality facilities that they need and deserve, and we need to further update the building along with our STEM, CTE, and technology programs and other programs as well. Surrounding districts, such as Beaverton, Meridian, Montebello, to say the least, have all passed bonds because they wanted to be competitive. They remodeled and added new rooms, better furniture, and more programs in district. We are behind in regards to updated facilities. In fact, I can still point, when we go on the tour, I will point out, it's in Mr. Francis's room now, but it used to be my dad's room. I can point out the desk that I had to sit at and endure puns and jokes throughout the entire class. He'll cringe at that, yep. The Ag Science program has been a wonderful addition to the district as a CTE program. It draws in a lot of students into the district, but we need to add more variety so that we are able to offer more to students that aren't interested in ag but may be interested in woodworking or automotives. Thus, it will draw in more students. It might be a harsh reality to some, but young families are looking for new, nice buildings that have plenty of programs available. So we need to be able to show off a nice new building and nice new programs. But the bond is not just for young families and students, but for young teachers as well, such as myself, new hires. As many of you know, there is a teacher shortage in the state. Schools are not only dying for young graduates, but they're struggling to keep those young teachers around for more than 3 years, which has put new teachers like myself into a new position where we are not only being interviewed by the schools, but we are interviewing the schools themselves. To put it simply, young teachers understand now that they can search around school to school and ask, what do you have to offer me? Because there's such a shortage, I can look around more and see what each school offers, and I can pick and choose. Just like young families are looking for the newest buildings and programs, so are young teachers. For example, when I was interviewing for Beaverton, not only did they interview me, but at the end they asked me, what questions do you have for us? And one of my passions is career-oriented, college-oriented CT programs, something that is going to get these students graduated and on track to having a career. That was my passion. And I asked, what programs did they offer? Not, can I maybe see what offer? I stated it. What programs do you offer? And they gave me a list of programs that they offered. And before I signed, I said, I want a tour as well, and I want you to point out what you have to offer. And they obliged and happily obliged. They were eager to show off that they had just passed a new bond, that they were going to implement these new programs. And so this excited me enough to sign a contract with them, and it's given me a lot of excitement for this upcoming school year. So I think if we pass this bond, we can give that excitement to new teachers that are looking to come in the district, and we can finally say, this is what we have to offer, these new buildings, these new programs, and it's going to generate a lot of excitement for new teachers. And I've always said that if new teachers or even current teachers are excited, then students are excited, and that creates the best learning environment possible, where you have students that are passionate about learning, and you have teachers that are passionate about the building they teach in and the curriculum they teach in. So I urge everyone to get out and at least vote on this issue. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Angela Brooks.
How many of you like hot McDonald's fries with a little bit of salt on them once in a while? Pull up to that window and you say, I want a large fry and a Coke maybe to go with that. Picture an elementary kid set on some hot fries with a little bit of salt on them. And he walks up to the counter there and he gets fries that were made at this high school, put into a container, thrown into the back of a van in the middle of December or January, driven to the elementary school, kept warm until that child stepped in line to get those fries. I know if I got crappy fries at McDonald's, I'd turn around and take them back. That poor child can't do that. This bond would help us do that with our kitchen. Yes, we have some abilities to revamp the kitchen right now. However, to do it properly, we have to bring it up to code. Therefore, we need more money. So to get the kitchen where we need it, so our children at the elementary school can actually have hot, fresh fries, or pizza, whatever it is that floats their boat, that is needed in this bond. The other thing of the elementary school is the library. If you see little people in the library, yeah, you're cute little kindergartners, but when they're sitting in chairs like we have right now, their shoes are dangling off the floor like by sometimes a foot, right? And they can't get adjusted and they're wiggly. Then you get the sixth graders who are also still in the elementary school that sit in these little chairs and they're big and gangly and they're not comfortable and they're wiggly. So it would be nice to have seating appropriate for all the ages of or sizes and ages, I guess, of our students in the elementary school. This bond would help with that. And our the gym, yes, Mrs. McCormick had alluded to that. The gym floor in the elementary school needs to be resurfaced. The kids use it quite heavily for activity, like for the basketball and whatever gym classes, and when summer school programs are there, they can, what's that called, Sparks, thank you. They utilize the gym quite a bit. So the gym actually gets a lot more activity rather than just gym class. And this bond would help with the resurfacing of that. So if you like your little people, they're gonna get help if this bond passes as well.
Thank you, Angela. Callie Lewis?
All right, good evening. My name is Kaylee Lewis. I would like to start off by saying thank you to those attending in person and via the live stream. It's a great opportunity when you have the ability to be involved in such matters with the community, so thank you for taking advantage of that opportunity tonight. I am not a Coleman graduate. I do not work for Coleman Schools, and contrary to my last name, I myself am not a lifelong Coleman resident. I am, however, a young mother of two who is determined to be involved in my children's education and the future of it. I've read many opinions on social media regarding the bond proposal, but the one that stuck out to me the most was simply, why? There's nothing else here. That's when it struck me how important this project is, not just for the school district itself, but for the community as a whole. Our community needs young families. One of the driving forces behind choosing a place to settle down is often, where are my kids going to be going to school? Unfortunately, even though our school district has been good stewards with what they were given, Coleman does not currently meet what a lot of families want for their children. This is actually a conversation my husband and I had in regards to our son starting kindergarten last year. Do we want to go somewhere other than Coleman? But we chose to remain in this school district to support our community. When we say why, there's nothing else here, we're basically telling outsiders looking in to give up on the idea of Coleman and move on. Don't worry about the sweet little coffee shop on the corner, the hardware that has the majority of your needs, the restaurants sprinkled throughout the town, or the entrepreneurs with stands filled with locally grown produce. If we were to couple those things and the other businesses that I missed with an amazing school, we would have a lot to offer potential families looking to lay down roots in a community. I was able to tour the high school and, like mostly every other person has said, I was in disbelief. Classrooms that don't regulate temperature, staff offices and closets, a science room that doesn't function, and walking through a maze to get to class on time. Quite frankly, this is unacceptable for our children. We as a community need to do better. The world has changed immensely in the past 40+ years, and it's time for our school's infrastructure to do the same, allowing for more opportunities for current and future students and staff. When we offer better facilities, more programs, and great teaching conditions, we will undoubtedly create a community that people want to be a part of. As I mentioned previously, I have two young children. One will be a first grader this fall, and the other will be in preschool next year. It will be a number of years before my children are fully utilizing the bulk of what makes up this bond proposal. Yet, our family is choosing to vote yes for this long-term investment. I have full confidence that Coleman School District will remain good stewards over those years, and when the time comes, our family will reap the rewards of voting yes this August. This is a big investment. I am not blind to that. But this is a long-term investment that will give our community a chance to thrive. More families in the community, more kids in our schools, more continuous traffic for our businesses. Better teaching conditions will widen the hiring pool, and unique programs will allow students to leave well-rounded and ready for the next step. And on that note, I'm going to leave with, if you have not experienced firsthand the condition of our outdated and overused infrastructure, please go and see it with your own eyes. Visit the school's website to read the provided information and use the tax calculator to see what your annual contribution could be. Get out and vote based on an informed decision. I appreciate your time and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Callie. Nate Harsh? Oh gosh, he's probably not going to speak now. I'm sorry. Nathan Clark. I'm so sorry.
That's all right. I've been called worse. Oh, good. So I'm Nathan Clark. Own and operate a family farm just a couple miles down the road. A lot of you know me. Pay taxes in both Geneva and Warren Township. So I know that's been a lot of the topic of conversation is the taxes. We own this building as a community. So it is our responsibility to take care of it. I don't think that the cost is all that great when we look at what we gain from it. I think we owe it to our kids. I'll keep my comment short because I don't think I can add a lot to what's already been said, but I will say that I graduated in 2002, and you know, we've done some bond issues through the years since I've graduated, and I didn't think too much of it. My kids have been at the elementary school mostly through that time, so I saw the upgrades that were made there and kind of just assumed that everything was good here too. I was invited to tour the facility with Jen McCormick, and I think it was back in January, and that was when I changed my mind, because I looked at the 3.85 mils, and I can do math at how much percentage of my property taxes are going to increase. But the tour is what changed my mind. Not much has changed. Not in 20 years since I graduated, but in the 45 since the building was built. So, you know, the building wasn't new when I was going to school here, and nothing's changed. Very little's changed. I didn't play sports, so I didn't feel like there was a lot here for me when I went to school here. That's not true anymore. We have a lot of programs that aren't just for the athletic kids. I think that's great. The problem is we don't always have facilities for those kids. The current facilities we didn't have those programs when the current facilities were built. So I look at the auditorium and think, for my kids that are in band, how great would it be to have a space? I've stood in the back of this room for the elementary school Christmas pageant that they put on, and see the people that are actually out in the hallway trying to see their kids or grandkids. And I think that space could be used a lot in this community, not just for school functions. There are a lot of other things that could be used for, and as taxpayers, we would have access to that. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Nathan. Sean McPhee.
Good evening. I'm Sean McPhee, class of 1994. I'm also a nurse, so I'm going to add on to Mrs. Rob's plug for the blood drive. There is actually a critical blood shortage. Hospitals are limiting blood transfusions right now to the sickest of the sick. So if you can, please, if it's not in August, and if it's not at Versiti, there's many other blood donation centers. So I'll get off that soapbox and go on to why we're here tonight. This all comes down to our kids. I imagine 50 years ago, because if the building opened in 1975, 1976, it probably took them a couple years to get to opening that door. So imagine 50 years ago, there was probably a group of community members assembled over at the Railway Center talking over what do we need to make our district retain kids, retain families, and they passed a bond. I'm sure it was a sizable amount to build this building that we're sitting in tonight. I've heard a lot of people say that it's a lot of money, and it is. I get it. But what I want people to look at is the tax calculator. Said I'm a nurse. I'm not a finance guy or person. But the tax calculator is going to help you figure out what your cost is to your family. And the one thing that I didn't know until I started really looking into it is about the homestead tax credit. There's also a senior credit. So senior citizens, this is right from the school webpage, who have, it says resources, I'm going to guess that's income, of less than or equal to $21,000 get 100% of their property taxes back in a credit. Families who have, not seniors as the head of their household, but families who have resources or income $51,000 or less get up to 100% back. So please, if you fall in one of those tax categories, do the math for yourself. Don't let your neighbors or someone down the street intimidate you and tell you what you're going to pay. I heard a story the other night that an elderly couple in the community was told their taxes were going to go up $900, Ange, and it was less than $100, like $91. So someone, I think, 70. So they were told 900 and it's 70. So someone missed a decimal point and some other things in there. So please do that calculation for yourself. I had told Jen tonight I was going to talk about the media center. I think that's already kind of been covered. I will say that, please stay for the tour. Please see it with your own eyes. If you're undecided, I think seeing it will help you, hopefully, come to the same conclusion that our family has. The media center is right in the middle of everything. It's wide open. I have a son who does receive special education services here. He was with me earlier. The reason my kids stepped out is because they're on Coach Clough's football team, so they're out there right now on the 7-on-7. He gets those services, but it's hard for him to hear in a media center, and he's very easily distracted. So if you've seen Finding Nemo and Dory, like, oh, 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 oh. So imagine all your friends are walking by, and you're probably a little embarrassed, like I'm sitting here in the media center. They know I'm in special ed, but very easily distractible. So having a place where they could meet one-on-one with the parapros would be beneficial. I also said I wanted to talk about CT, and I think it would be fantastic to reuse this space. So if we do approve the bond and we get a new auditorium, this space would be recaptured for technology. When I went to school here in the 90s, we had CAD, we had welding, we had drafting, we had auto shop, and if we could bring some programs back, like Matt Fox said, to make these kids ready to hit the ground running when they leave school. So whether that be they're interested in computer science and they could learn information technology, healthcare, drafting, things like that. Lori's getting closer, so my time is getting short. It's like The Price is Right. So I lost my train of thought because I was joking. Okay, so one more thing before I step away. Please, as you are looking on the tour, one of the things I want you to notice is the science area. As I said, I'm a nurse, so I took chemistry here, I took physics here, I took biology here. Our chemistry lab does currently not have natural gas or propane or whatever the school uses. Imagine graduating and going to college and never have used a Bunsen burner. But you are now sitting in a classroom and you've only ever seen experiments on TV. And we have Dow in our backyard and we want our kids to be competitive. Or you were in biology, but the faucets don't work, so you can't do experiments where you need running water. These are basic necessities that our kids need and deserve. So I thank you for your time. Last time, we didn't have a lot of people stay, so I'm trying really, it's my birthday. So for my birthday, I want you to stop and see the tour and just give us another 30 minutes of your time because I think it will really help you see why the need is so critical. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean, and happy birthday. Jen Hess, and a reminder again, once your cards are completed, please hold them up. Jen Murray will be around to collect those.
Well, hello, I'm Jen Hess. I'm a community member, a parent, and I'm also a teacher in another district. When I got hired in Midland and I moved up here and married a wonderful comment man, we lived in Midland. And research shows that if you have a good school experience, you'll want to come back to your community to raise your kids there, and that happened for us. We had a lot of comment pride in my home, and so we came back and raised our kids here in Coleman, and it has done wonders for our students. It's safe. It's provided a lot of opportunities, even though lots of people say, why don't you take your kids to great old Midland? And it is a good school district, but Coleman offers opportunities for students. However, like you've heard, it's 50 years old. And so while we want to be one-on-one with our technology, and while we want to continue to offer updated and upgraded education, we can't do it in the current facilities that we have. So I encourage you to be informed, and I'm so thankful that a lot of you are here because you too have comment pride. You're a part of this solution, or you can be a part of the solution. So I encourage you to continue to inform yourself. I also am with Matt Fox about recruiting new teachers. Teacher shortage, and lots of us are going to retire, and a lot of Coleman teachers are on the end of retiring, and we need to be able to be competitive in this community here to say, you can teach at Coleman. It's a great place to live and to invest. I really believe in the Coleman teachers here. They've done a great job, but I really want to also support them and provide them with a nice place to work. So before I end, because I know I only have a couple of minutes, I want you to stand up if you're a Coleman student or have been a Coleman student in the last 5 years. Last 5 years, sorry. I'll get to you. So, and I know there were a couple other ones that were here that went to football, but these kiddos deserve the best that we can give them. So stand up if you teach in Coleman. Continue to stay standing if you've already stood. These teachers deserve the best that we can give them as they teach in Coleman. Stand up if you're an alumni more than 5 years. And keep standing. I want to see, look how many people in this room. Look, I know there's more out there because I know I've only lived here a few years, 18, but I know there's more out there. You all received education here and came back to the community for something. You have Comet Pride, and I know that you want to continue to see Coleman growing for the future. You want your kids and your grandkids to have what you had and came back here or stayed here for. So I encourage you to get out and vote. And if you don't know for sure what's going to be done with the money, or you're not real comfortable and that's your stepping point, then contact Jen and get involved. And then you can be sure it's being invested well. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. Etta Haggard?
Hi, my name's Etta Hager. I'm going to be a senior this year. I'm also a volleyball player, so waking up at 6 in the morning, like every other Saturday, to go to a volleyball tournament and have to be here at like 6:30 is not fun. And I know all of my teammates can agree when they see the auxiliary gym and think like, imagine if we could have a tournament here, that'd be cool. And now we can imagine it and it's cool. I think it would be really great. And like Coach Clough said, kids have to go to practice until 9. No kid wants to do that, and they shouldn't have to. I'm also a very cold person, and having to wear like a long sleeve and a sweatshirt and a varsity jacket just to be comfortable at school, like I should not have to do that. And it just causes distractions when kids can't be comfortable. We also really need new lockers. Kids lose valuable class time because they can't get their lockers open because they're dated and they're dingy and just not fun. I think like having more opportunities here would be great. Even if they're not here after I graduate, I still think it would be great for other kids because that's what it's all about. And I think it would just be really cool. So thanks.
Thanks, Etta. Karen Fox.
I'm Karen Fox, and I'm actually a 1988 graduate. I'm not sure if I top everybody in the room yet tonight. Well, Kurt's here, so yeah, Kathy's here. Never mind. And if you divide Comet Pride as I should probably still semi-embarrass my family doing the Honorary Coleman, then I'm a Comet at heart. I just want to share a little bit about our story. When I graduated, actually in 1987, I was afforded an opportunity through our school system to co-op for Dow. And about a month ago, I celebrated 32 years. So it's an amazing experience that I was afforded by the partnership here. Over those 32 years, I moved my family twice. My kids went to Coleman schools through the 5th and 7th grade. And when we moved to Texas, we looked at lots of schools. We went to a 5A district, which was culture shock to say the least for my children. But I do have to tell you, when you're trying to get your kids to move, facilities play a big part. The school district we went to was 50,000 kids. And we had several schools to pick from. And we, frankly, went to the newer schools in that district. We migrated to those neighborhoods for those schools, for the offerings they had, not only academically, but because of the facilities. So I think the importance of this facility is beyond just the kids that are here today and the kids who are growing up in the district. It's about the ability to bring those kids here along with those teachers. And I'll be honest, when I first saw this, I was very skeptical. We have just moved back to Coleman about 3 years ago. We've made a big investment. We've renovated and have our house and property, and we decided it was time to come home and come back to what was familiar. But now I feel like it's time for us to make another investment in our school system to help sustain Coleman and help grow Coleman. I got involved and came to the community meeting and learned a lot, and have been talking to Jen and Lori and asking lots of questions, going into township meetings just to get myself informed. And the only thing I encourage each and every person is to get yourself informed. And just like in high school, do your homework. No copying, no cheating. I think you have to use the tax calculators. You need to read the FAQs, understand the impact to you and your family, and think more holistically than just, well, what's the enrollment? What are they going to do with the money? I think you have to think big picture here. And as I look across my career and my experience and think about all the kids we've seen going to a school district that big and then coming back to Michigan, I think every child, regardless of where they choose to call home, deserves a fair shot at a top quality education in a top quality facility. So I hope you'll join me and my family voting yes on August 3rd, which is my anniversary. So.
Thank you. Ty? Ty Murray is next. Once again, if you have cards, Jen needs some steps, so hold them up.
Good evening. My name is Ty Murray, and I'm going to be a junior at Coleman High School. Coleman is a small community, so it's hard not to get brought into the bond issue. I have kept up on all the debate for and against it, and I thought it might be helpful to get a current student's perspective on the school today, and then what it would mean on August 4th after the votes have been counted. Let's start with the school today. With the classrooms, they are small, odd-shaped, built with temporary walls, and have painted on chalkboards, and either cold enough that you need to wear sweaters and jackets, or so hot that you literally sweat just sitting there. In addition, in the winter, if the heat register comes on during class, you can't hear the teachers sometimes. I'm not sure what else to say about our classrooms except that they are what they are, but we wish they could be better. Next are the lockers. If you come to our school during any given school day, you will have to watch your step because everyone's bags, books, and athletic gear are all across the floor and in the hallway because the lockers are too small. My grandma actually came to pick me up one day and asked if we were having a locker clean out or something because the floors were covered. Gym time. With the current gym space, practices can go till 9 at night. Wrestlers have to wrestle wherever they can find space to roll their mats down. Track sometimes needs to run in the library, and if you want to use the gym to start practicing for an upcoming sport while the current sport is in season, forget about it, as the only time open is late Saturday nights. Not having the appropriate gym space really puts our school at a disadvantage when it comes to being competitive. On to the locker rooms. I think the most embarrassing part of having other schools come to Coleman to compete in sports is having them use our locker rooms. They are ancient, and some of the lockers are rusted out, and no one uses the showers because there's no privacy. And last is the auditorium. I'm not in the performing arts programs here at school, but I have friends that are. We currently have band, choir, and drama club, which is a new one. And I believe the biggest issue is it's just not big enough for our needs anymore. If you need an example of that, just come to this year's elementary Christmas program. Now, what will it mean on August 4th after the votes have been counted from students' eyes? If the bond goes through, we will finally have classrooms that will let us go into the room ready to learn instead of worrying how to keep warm or how to stay cool. We will have lockers that are big enough that everything will fit. We will have enough gym space that all sports can practice in appropriate areas and times. We will have an auditorium that is big enough to not only handle the performing arts, but can be used by other schools and community organizations like FFA, the Community Talent Show, Farm Bureau events, and 4-H club meetings. And most of all, we will have pride back in our school. If the bond doesn't go through, it will be disappointing, I'm not going to lie, as these facilities issues aren't going away and are desperately needed for us to be competitive academically and athletically in the future. I believe if we are constantly evolving and growing, if we aren't constantly evolving and growing, we are dying. And I'm afraid if the bond doesn't pass, that is where we are heading. I'm not up here as a young kid that doesn't understand that what the school board is asking is a big amount of money, 21 million to be exact. I get it. That's a lot of money, but honestly, we aren't asking for a new football stadium with a turf field or anything like that. We are just asking to renovate our 46-year-old school with better classrooms and more room to grow. To me, these are essential needs for a school system if we want to be successful. I get this is going to be a hard decision to make for some financially, and if voting yes is going to jeopardize you keeping a roof over your head or food on your table, you should without a doubt vote no, and I understand that completely. However, if you use the tax calculator, you can find it in your heart and your pocketbooks to invest in Coleman schools and students like me. I promise we won't let you down. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Ty. Neil Berthium. And once again, I want to thank Ty, Vance, and Etta for speaking as students. That takes a lot. I don't enjoy public speaking myself, and I thought they did a fantastic job. Mr. Berthium.
Hi, I'm Neil Berthum. I am a teacher in a neighboring district. I've had two daughters go through school here in the last 6 years and graduate. Lori told me I only had about 3 minutes. I wrote down lots, but we'll get rid of that, all right, Lori? I know there's no way we can do that. I want to talk to you specifically about a couple things tonight, but before I do that, I want to just say thank you for everybody that's here tonight. And I greatly hope you stay and take the tour. Nothing makes me scratch my head more than when I talk to someone or I see a vote yes or a vote no sign, and I know it's been decades since they've been in the building. So thank you for coming tonight. I want to thank the board for your time. Putting together a bond is not an easy thing. I counted last night, I've either been a student under or have taught for my boss, my superintendent, 12 superintendents now in my lifetime. And I want to thank Jen McCormick. You are without a doubt out of those 12 the hardest working of any I've ever had. So thank you. I want to speak to you specifically about two things. One is safety. Being the elementary male, I get to attend every safety meeting and I'm on every safety committee. With doing that, I can tell you I have been in every high school probably within 50 or 60 miles of here in the last 7 or 8 years. I will tell you from a general safety standpoint, I think the building is maintained extremely well. But when you take the tour tonight, I want you to look at the chairs, I want you to look at the floor, I want you to look at the cabinets, and from a simple thing of getting a cut or a scrape or stitches or tearing your clothing, it's time that the Band-Aids were done. I also want you to speak specifically on fire. I want you, when you go in, I want you to imagine being in some of those classrooms in the case of an emergency. I want you to figure out how to get out. I want you to figure out when you have to go through 3 classrooms to get to the back classroom, how everybody gets out in the time of a fire. I also want you to, when you walk in, I've been on lots of committees, as I say. Big topic for education lately has been active shooters in lockdown situations. I think you've done a great job getting grants here to get additional safety for our students. But for a minute, I want you to stand when you're in the media center, and I want you to imagine an active shooter in that media center. An open concept is absolutely the worst situation for a shooter in a building. I also want you to take a look at the walls. They're tin. Now, you might not be able to see into another classroom, but if you're standing in the media center, you can certainly reach every classroom. Finally, I want to end with you tonight. I looked at the bond. I looked at what it means personally to us. I've looked at the surrounding districts. I can do a huge comparison. I want you to look at those pictures, and I want you to really look at them before you take your tour. This isn't a luxury. This is standard. This is what every surrounding district that passes a bond has. This is what it looks like. If you're a student, and all things being equal, and they are when we went to school of choice, and I want you to think about your job, where you're at. If you have the capability of going here, or you have the capability of coming to where you are now, all things considered, whether you're a teacher, a staff, or a student, this is what you want. And again, this is standard. I've been in every high school around. This is what everyone is looking like now. We're 46 years without this. I just feel as though it's time. Thank you. Oh, I got more time?
You were right at it. Thank you. I'm going to round out the speakers tonight. I just want to share a story that Sean alluded to. I find it very disturbing. I was contacted a week ago Monday by a community member whose elderly parents had been contacted by someone that they viewed as trustworthy in this community. It is also somebody who I would view trustworthy until now. This individual told this senior citizen couple that if the bond proposal passed, their taxes would increase by $900. Fortunately, this couple told their children. Their kids have done their research. They've been on the website. They knew about the tax calculator. They helped their parents input their information and discovered that their taxes would only increase by $77. A week ago tomorrow, I learned of another senior citizen woman in our community who was also approached by someone she trusted and was told hers would increase by $500. She went to a township official who was familiar with our presentation, knew there was a tax calculator, helped her recalculate hers, and it was substantially different as well. Everyone in this room should be concerned that there is someone deliberately deceiving senior citizens in our community. So I ask you, please, if you hear of anybody talking about taxes and it seems a little off, say something. Refer them to Jen, refer them to a board member, refer them to the website and the tax calculator. My taxes are going to change, but they might not be the same as yours or your neighbors. Everybody's is going to be different. So do your due diligence and get on the website and check that out. I encourage everyone to consider supporting this bond. I no longer have kids that attend this district as students. However, 46 years ago, when I was a student in this district, the community voted to approve a bond that built this building and the addition to the elementary school. And now it's time for us to do the same, to support a bond for some much needed improvements for our current and our future students. I dislike paying taxes as much as the next person. However, I would much rather pay a tax that stays local in my community where I can see where my dollars and my money was spent and the kids that benefit from it. It's a minimal investment with a big impact. I'll be voting yes on August 3rd, and I hope you'll join me in doing the same. That concludes our speakers. We're going to move on to the public comment. This is a community meeting, and there is a time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda item public comment. Each question and statement made by a participant shall be limited to 3 minutes duration. Public comment shall be limited to 15 minutes duration. The time frame may be extended if necessary so that everyone has an opportunity to speak. This is not a time for public debate. Questions should also be submitted in writing on a card, even if answered, so that we don't miss responding. Some questions will be answered now, some following public comment, and some during the tour. Those questions that are not answered in person will be added to the FAQ as soon as questions may be researched. We ask that you state your name, and then your time will begin. We have 2 board members who will go around with microphones, and we'll get to you as you raise your hand. So at this time, we'll entertain public comment. If you'd like to speak, you can raise your hand. You can also come up front to the podium if you'd like. Otherwise, they'll bring a mic to you.
Name's Jeff. A lot of people probably know me. Don't care if you like me or not, but it's the way it is. These people are lying right to us, right to our face. That's the same story she gave us last informative meeting, and same story she gave us about the taxing and all this, and they're lying right to us. You said Gene don't care if we don't have him do any maintenance. I talked to him today. I'm not real good standing to Gene, but at least he says, no, they're lying right to you.
Thank you. Any further public comment tonight? Okay. Anybody want to speak? Otherwise, we'll do a few questions. We can always entertain more public comment. Oh, Chris has one in the back.
Hi, my name is Mariah Roman. I just had a few concerns about this. I know currently the schools are paying, I think you said $8,000, right, to rent the community center, and I'm just not sure. This is probably one of the greatest incomes for that building. So if the new programs they bring in, if they were to fail or just not be as successful as this currently is, I don't want to see that close because Coleman's already lost so much between losing the grocery store and now the bank. We're not on a very good path right now, and I'm just not sure if this is the best way to get off of that path. I think the best way to bring people into the community and young families is going to be jobs and new businesses, frankly. And has the committee spoken with families who are currently driving to go to school out of district? Because I'm sure a lot of the parents are just dropping their kids off at Beaverton on their way to work, and it's just so much more convenient for them. And I just don't know if these families will actually switch to Coleman if this goes through, because if the kids are already set in Beaverton or Midland or Clare, wherever it is they're going. And I do think, I think bringing the welding and carpentry back stuff, I think that's a good idea. I just don't know why we really got rid of that in the first place, and I don't want to see us bring it back just to get rid of it again in 10, 15 years. Which is a whole nother point. This bond is supposed to go 28 years, and what's going to happen at the end of this when all this is old? Like, are we going to have to do this all over again? Because it's asking a lot of money from the community, and it's been a long year with COVID. I'm also worried how this will affect our local businesses. You know, our restaurants have not done well this past year, having to be shut down in 2020 for COVID reasons. And yeah, I don't know. I haven't had the opportunity to speak with any of them. I tried to, but I didn't get the chance. And I just don't know if they can afford to pay this new tax as well. And Coleman is just, you know, we're not the wealthiest of communities. So I think it was like 17% are technically in poverty, and I think a lot of them are renters too. And so if the people renting the buildings are technically like have higher incomes and paying more taxes, what's going to happen to these renters then when their rent goes up? Are they going to have to leave Coleman? Because that could be 17% of our students leaving. And especially if we're not seeing an increase of students, that's going to be really hard on this community. And I think, wasn't this auditorium originally designed for classes of like twice the size we currently have? I'm just not sure if I see all this being necessary. Yeah, you know, in my school, we had the building heated at 62 in the winter to save money, and we couldn't ask for bond for thicker walls, so I didn't hear, you know, kids watching videos in other rooms. You know, I drive to Midland to go to the gym. That's another thing. If the rec center were to close, that's the only public fitness center for this community. And a lot of them are seniors and don't have access to cars or anything. So would this new fancy gym and fitness center, would the public be able to use it if something were to happen to the rec center? Because I think it's important that they have that opportunity. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mariah. Jen, do you want to do a couple questions, and then we'll see if there's more?
So I'm writing as quickly and furiously as I can. I think I got all of that down, and then I also have some questions that were sent around. If there's any that we don't get to, I will go through, and even the ones we do get to, I'll go through and add that information into the FAQ as well. So going to, I don't even know where to start. I guess it doesn't matter that much, but one of the questions was what portion of the 21.5 million bond is devoted to the new auditorium and the 2 additions to the high school. You can actually find that right on the website as well. So let me pull that up so you can see it. So when you go into the space that talks about, it has a little button that says junior, senior high. When you click in there, you'll see on the left-hand side, oh, I apologize. Let me move this. It's easier to see if I put it over there. All right, you'll see the piece that says junior, senior high school budget estimates. There's one of those under the elementary budget as well. Because these questions were regarding the auditorium and the additions, I'm going to pull that piece up. You can actually pull up a cost estimate, so it shows you where it's at as far as the gym addition, the auditorium, and the band and choral classrooms. Those would be the actual additions. And then you can see the other money for the remodels, for instructional tech, for loose furnishings, equipment, site work, all of that. So you can pull those up, again, either on the elementary page for those projects or on the junior, senior high page for those. Another question was, are the questions being answered tonight, or will we get those back in an email? And what I'll be doing is putting them in the FAQ. The notes that I have here, I don't have email addresses for. If people leave email addresses or phone numbers, I'm happy to contact you. But the ones that I have here, I don't have that. So I will add those to the FAQ. I will tell you it'll probably be Monday by the time that I do that, but those will be added there. Another question was with regard to the budget now allows for buses, and why more? So in the 2018 approval, that's a 3-series bond for 2023 and 2027. We have made sure we still own our buses, even though that we have Auxilia working with us. So we still own all of those. We put in 4 buses during each of those series of bonds to ensure that our buses are up to speed. They need to be about 14 years old or less. We needed, in order to keep that moving forward, I think we added, I believe, 2 buses, it may be 3, but we added a couple of buses with this bond so that we could continue that on and make sure that we are keeping all of our fleets up to date for our students. Someone asked who paid for the presentation pictures that are behind us. So it's a requirement that part of the meeting with Treasury that we had back in April, May, it's all kind of flowing together now. We need to have those conceptual designs, and so those come from our architects. I'm not this great of an artist, so it's not me. Where does the bond money get stored? It is separate from the general fund. So the architects have already taken care of that. So they provided those for us for this meeting. Where does the bond money get stored? Is that general fund? So the bond funds are separated. So those aren't within our general fund. You can see exactly what bond funds there are, how much is used. We're always willing to share that out with community members if they want to come in and share and take a look at that, but that is separate from our general fund. A few more questions. So since we've gotten grants for new workout equipment, why the new workout room? It's really space for the current equipment, so when we walk through, if anybody wants to see that, and some of the coaches can allude to that, right now, all of that equipment is upstairs in our gym. It's also up there with batting cages, so things get, I believe, shuffled and moved around as different athletic teams are trying to use it. Our wrestling team has all of their equipment over in the family center right now, so they have to take that equipment up every single time. The goal would be to allow them to have a space so they're not wasting part of their practice time taking care of all of that. Aim, did you want to add?
Can I add in there?
You can, absolutely.
So, my husband spoke earlier. I think you love you teach here. Coach, what do I do?
Amy, it does help for the live stream. I think it was on. Yeah.
Anyways, I just want to say a couple things. One of the things about the current situation of our equipment and the current situation of our space that our students have right now is that it's, like they said, it's upstairs. So we have some students with special needs who cannot go upstairs. So we have students who are in gym class who have to have weights and things brought down for them in order for them to participate. I believe this new facility will allow for accessibility for those students. As also for the space, right now in the summer, all of it gets moved out to the gym or out to the barn so that the football team, the volleyball team, the cheerleading team, cross country, anybody who wants to use it in the summer, it's accessible to them that way. It's very inaccessible to them right now while it being upstairs because of the gym having to be waxed or used. So this would allow for any sports off season, during season, to be able to go in with no questions asked. I would hope it's available to the community because I know as of right now it kind of is if you ask. We have definitely a couple of teachers who would be willing to help you with that. As for the equipment, I go to the gym in Midland too, and I would love to see some of that equipment that's more to my liking, to my, so I coach as well, and some of the equipment that's up there is not something that I would have my students be working with because it's not going to make them successful. But there's some equipment that hopefully we would get with this bond that would make it more successful for them, and they would gain knowledge. My husband is the PE teacher, and he actually teaches weightlifting up there as part of his class. And I just feel like it would be, the accessibility is my biggest thing, just allowing for students who have wheelchairs or walkers or anything else to be accessible to that weight room because it's not.
Another question was, will the new workout room be for all sports? Absolutely. Be accessible for all of them. One of the questions was, why are we paying rent on a building we own? So we pay rent for the electricity and heating that we use, for the spaces that we're using, the time we're using those. Otherwise, the family center would be using those and renting those spaces out to other groups, or they would be adding to additional programming for the community in those spaces, which a little bit was shared by Andrea earlier in the video. Have the numbers in the district increased or decreased in the last 5 years? They have decreased. Let me pull up a little bit more info. So there's question 19 that you can go into directly in the FAQ, gives a lot of detail and information. What I think is important that you are aware of, and what part of what's included in here, I won't read every single one of these, but we did take a look at and did a 100-day report my very first year here. I was getting to know the district, getting to know the people. We invited groups, basically anybody who wanted to talk to me, sitting down and doing comment chats. We took that information, put it into a 100-day report, along with any data that I could find from the census and all of those types of things. It was very clear that we, at that time, had a little bit more of an elderly population. We also had people who were not having as many kids. I think that's fairly typical in a lot of places. But we were, on average, I looked at a 20-year average from 15, 16, and prior, and I looked at a 10-year average. We were losing between 24 and 27 kids a year at that particular time. In the first year that I was here, we lost 32 students, and I just about lost it, because my first year, this is not how you want things to start out. We had budgeted flat at that time. I believe it's fair to say we had the board had hired a new teacher, wanted to make sure they retained that person. They were very solid, and again, trying to bring in the best for our kids. We did that. That person is still here with us. And so when that decrease in student enrollment came, that put us in a little bit of a hitch. In the upcoming 3 years following that, prior to COVID, we were able to change that average of student loss was between 2 and 4 students a year. So moving from what it had been to what it was. I also added information in here because it was asked the other night at one of the township meetings, what is that in percentage loss? So the part that I am excited about, when COVID hit, that changed to about a 6 student loss. Somebody, I think one of the questions in here is what was current enrollment, and so for this past fall that was 664. When you take a look at this information, it asks about percentages because the person, rightfully so, said, so if you have less students, of course, the percentages are really what you're trying to look at. Our percentage loss back in 2009-10 was 4.5%. You can see all of these different percentages across the board here. We had, and I'm going to speak a little bit more to the time that I've been here. 15-16, it was a 4.4% loss. In 16-17, 4.8%. In 17-18, we had an increase of 4.2%, so we made some good rebound there. In 18-19, we had a 1.9% loss. In 2019-20 and 2020-21, you may recall that we had something called COVID. In the 19-20 school year, we had a 6% loss, and this past year we had an 11% loss because any students that moved to homeschool during this time this year that were concerned about being in school, all of those types of things, and we had some numbers of that, all of those people would count into that loss as well. The goal would be to have them coming back. I think one of the questions that I'll come back to something that Mariah had said was, what are we doing about that? So we've already made personal calls to every single student who was in online learning last year. We've already started calls to any students who had gone to homeschool or who had moved from our district last year. Some people moved because they were school of choice already with us and they were involved in the flood. And so they moved elsewhere. We also had a family that I can think of immediately who moved elsewhere. They moved about an hour and a half away and midway through the school year moved back. We've had students who actually one of them spoke last time. They had a step or half brother who was in school here with us. They were over kind of West Greenville-ish area, actually moved into our district because of what their sibling thought of being here, and were pretty strong into dramatic arts and those types of things. We have students who have come to us, including for athletics, from Bullet Creek. Parents are very proud, are willing to speak out about the district and what they like about it because of that. So we are bringing people in for that, and then we continue to make phone calls to others, school of choice. What is it that we're doing well? We're talking to, we've got schedules set up. In fact, Natalie's in the back there. She's part of my team for that. But making phone calls as soon as somebody's in here for about a month. Our goal is to make sure that they're getting a personal phone call. What's going well? What's a struggle? So those are some of the things that we're working on. Another question was with regard to who can vote. Every registered voter who lives in Coleman Community School District, whether a property owner or not, is eligible to vote. There are a few questions on here. I talked a little bit about enrollment trend. There's more detail there. Some people have asked about test scores, size of graduating classes. I can answer some of this, but not all of it. Some of it I'll need to look up. Our graduating class this year was 35 students. It's our smallest class in the district this year. Our classes also run anywhere from that to like 60 plus students. I want to say 62, 63 students. So that's where we're at. We do have a few classes that are smaller, but we also have some classes that are significantly larger, quite a few of those. I mentioned the total enrollment. And someone asked how many FTE teachers in the district. We are about 40. I don't have an exact number of that. It's 41, it's 39, it's right around there, but I can look that up for you. Want me to continue?
Okay, public comment? Anybody else would like a mic? Angie has someone.
Is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
there you go.
Okay. Is it possible for you to bring up the tax collector and model for everyone in here a sample of a typical home and what the taxes would cost? The increase.
So there's, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a disclaimer in here, just shares information with you about your estimated net property tax bill after the homestead property tax credit. And these are estimates only, should not be relied on as tax advice. Certainly, you know, contact your advisors, but this will give you a very good idea of where you were at and how it will impact you. You accept that, you input your annual household income. So that this doesn't appear to be, do you want to throw a number at me? Or do you not want to? Does anybody?
Let's say 100,000.
Okay. There you go. Taxable value, so 50% of a home value. 50? If you're age 65 and older, unremarried spouse of a person who is 65 or older at the time of death, you select senior. If you're deaf, hemiplegic, paraplegic, quadriplegic, or totally permanently disabled, select disabled. All others select general. What would you like me to select? General? Okay, it's already on there. Please select if your property is homestead or non-homestead. Right? And then please choose the appropriate local unit within which your property is located. So we have the different options of the townships. Okay. Warren Township, you click on calculate estimated tax impact. So with this increase, the increased estimated tax bill would be $192.50 with all of those pieces included. Obviously, everyone's is different. The estimated tax increase monthly is $16.04. The estimated daily tax increase is 53 cents. So maybe think about what you spend on 53 cents on daily. Does that help? Thank you.
A question.
Okay.
Is that twice a year or once a year? That money?
That is all as once a year, correct, RJ? Just want to make sure I don't say anything wrong. Once per year. That's your annual amount. Thank you for that question.
Anyone else?
This bond is not homesteadable. This bond is separate from your homestead.
Would you, I was just going to
Yes,
ask
please.
RJ, so I'm going to introduce RJ Naughton is our financial advisor through PFM. So thank you.
Thank you. So both non-homesteaders and homesteaders pay the property tax. And so it does apply to both homesteaders and non-homesteaders.
Homesteaders or non-homesteaders, percentage of that goes on your taxes versus how much you can homestead.
So could you go through that
I'm an ex-county supervisor for 25 years. I know a little bit about this. Bring us down.
Both homesteaders and non-homesteaders pay debt levy taxes.
So we can do another tax calculator example, and we'll do this one as a non-homesteaded property.
The county has a report that they publish every year. It's called the apportionment report. And the apportionment report lists the total components of your millage, if you're homesteaders and non-homesteaders. And the apportionment report will show that both have a component of their property taxes that refers to school debt.
Excuse me? I have a question. What calculating here, that's additional on top of what we actually pay, right? Now,
Correct. That's correct.
added to whatever you pay now when you let our taxes and be on top.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Your property is classified either homestead being your primary residence. Non-homestead would be if you own multiple properties. You can only have one property listed as your homestead.
Jeff, I think what you're saying is that the homestead exemption, this won't be exempt, right? No, I'm asking. Yeah. Right, no. I'm asking you if you're asking about the exemption. So my farmland, I get an agricultural exemption the same as a homestead exemption. Right. Okay.
Okay, let's please remain civil and respectful to each other.
I have a suggestion.
Sure.
Can you
Yeah.
redo that whole entire
Jeff,
thing?
if you could wait.
With
Somebody
making the
else is
home
speaking.
non-homesteaded?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So
Jackie, I'm going to have you help me. All right?
Okay, let's do this example, the non-homesteaded.
Use the same
Number,
numbers.
so 100,000
Okay. And 50?
and 50. And leave everything else the same, but mark not homesteaded.
Okay. And in Warren Township. I will do that, thanks. Better?
There we go.
There you go. Perfect. That's what works for me. I don't know about the rest of your eyes, but, all right, so same numbers under non-homestead.
It's the same amount.
Same.
Okay. Are you guys ready for a tour? All right.
Lori, could I just mention just a couple
Sure.
of things? I am going to come back to some more of the questions that were mentioned, because I know there was a list of them. One thing I wanted to share is with regard to our working with Jeans. So I want to make sure that it is very clear that it is important to me to make sure that I've talked with community members. So prior to working with Auxilio, I went over, myself and Mike Huss went over to sit down, and we actually had a conversation in Gene's office. We talked with him about what may happen, because nothing had been approved at that time. This has been well over a year ago now. We went over to have a conversation with him. We sat there, we were probably there a half an hour or so. His son came in and out a couple of times. And we talked about what this may mean, that this may mean that less of our bus work would go over to his shop. I said, what is this going to do to you as a company? What he shared with us is that it may mean that we wouldn't get first dibs, so a lot of times with inspections and things like that, they would kind of hop to and take care of things for us very quickly. So he let us know that if we were still doing work, but it wasn't everything, that may hinder their ability to do that as quickly, because they had a lot of other work that they're doing, which is fantastic. I also asked the question, how is this going to impact your business? You know, it's about, I want to say it's about 35,000 that we had been doing business there. It's still about 15 to 20. We do have some capability to do some of those things in-house that we're going over there. We do have some things under warranty with our buses still, so we're using that warranty rather than paying for it as a school. And so we did have that conversation. I don't want to say quote, the comment that was made was, we will do fine if we're not taking on all of that work. We have plenty to do, and we talked a little bit about all the tractors and all of the other things going on. I'm not saying there's not an impact, but I do think it's important that everyone here knows that we did sit down and have a conversation with Gene prior to that. The only other thing that there was one other, and I can't find it quickly. So I will go back and answer those questions. And Mariah, if you want to leave your number, your email address, I'll make sure I send those directly to you, as well as put them in the FAQ, okay? So I think I got them all. Thanks.
Okay. All right. We will move on to our tour. So you're welcome to join under the flag back there. And we'll be going around.